If you've ever experienced an oddity or strange glitch in the Matrix-like story, consider sending it my way. Just go to astheravendreams.com and click the button to do so. And of course, thank you. I used to be in the army. One day, about 6 years ago, 4 of my soldiers and I was a sergeant at the time, were working on our vehicle maintenance on Motorpool Monday. I had been with this organization for almost 2 years, and the process for turning in our maintenance paperwork had always been the same. The process was, inspect the vehicles, annotate any faults on the paperwork, 5988, bring it to the mechanics to verify any faults, then once verified, bring it to the company XO. After I passed out the maintenance paperwork for that week to my soldiers, they went out and tried to complete the task. However, they came back to me a little while later to let me know that the mechanics were refusing to verify the paperwork and said that we were supposed to bring it to the XO first, and then it would go to them. This irritated me, because I knew the process, and that was wrong. I figured it was just a new mechanic giving out bad information, so I went and talked to the maintenance chief warrant officer. When I told him the process we were trying to do, his exact words were, "We have never done it like that, Sergeant." At this point, I feel like I'm being pranked, so I call my platoon sergeant. He tells me that I am wrong, and that it has never been done the way that I remember. Well, it wasn't just me that remembered it that way. All 4 of my soldiers were just as confused as myself. We asked our buddies from other platoons, other mechanics, and other sergeants, and everyone told us that we were wrong. Wanting to just be done for the day, we all complied with the process. A week goes by and Motorpool Monday comes back around. My soldiers and I do the process that we did the week prior. I go to bring the paperwork to the XO before the mechanics, and he looks at me and says, "What are you doing, Sergeant? These have to be verified by the mechanics first before you bring them to me." I laughed and asked if he was joking, but he was not. So I went back to Motorpool and asked the maintenance chief, who affirmed the process that I knew was right from the beginning. I went back to my office and told my soldiers, who were all just as confused as I was. Everyone had gone back to the original way, and no one had any memory of the other process other than the 4 soldiers and myself. We could not think of a good explanation for what happened, other than a really weird shared glitch. The process never changed again. It remained the same for the next 1.5 years that I was with that organization. To this day, I randomly think about it, and it drives me crazy not knowing what happened there. Hi there. I'm a 39-year-old female, and this occurred, I think, a little over 1 year ago. This was a very real event. No drugs or alcohol. I was in our bathroom, which has a line of sight out the back window to where my hubby passes by before coming in the door. So I was just doing my hair and looked over to see him outside the window, walking up, switching the Kroger bag to his other hand to grab his keys, etc. Then heard the door and watched him walk by to the kitchen. I said, "Hey baby," and he didn't hear me. Not surprising, his hearing isn't the best. But I heard him lay the bags down and then lay his keys and wallet down, so I stuck a clip in that last bit of hair to do and started out of the bathroom door to give him a hug and kiss. Well, here it is. Instantly when I walked out of the doorway of the bathroom, everything was completely different. All the lights were out, and they had certainly been on a moment prior. Totally weirded out. I felt shaky and whatnot. But I guess managed to walk a few steps to look toward the kitchen, only to see my husband wasn't even there. Then, before I even had time to attempt to process what the hell just happened, I saw through our kitchen window. His headlights were coming down the driveway. It was then that I started to get extra weirded out, and for sure had to sit down. I remember I propped myself sitting against the edge of my couch arm, and the next part is what freaks me out the absolute most. I couldn't believe my eyes at all. As I watched him walk around that window, it was like someone had just literally rewound a tape and was replaying it. The exact same motions, the exact same sounds, all the way through, including him setting the keys and bags down. The only thing I could think at that point is how crazy I would actually sound if I told anyone this. Except I told my husband right when he got there. So I just want to know if anyone has any ideas of what happened. I'm open to hear about it. It's the single most unbelievable, existential type thing that's happened in my life. And I will never forget it. It's a small thing, but any change in reality is significant, right? We have a set of ceramic mixing bowls. They're various colors, and each one has color on the outside and a different color on the inside. The largest of these bowls has been used as a water bowl for our dogs for about 10 years. This bowl was red on the outside and yellow on the inside. We had 4 dogs, so my wife and I washed and refilled that bowl often, sometimes several times a day. We were going out of town for a long weekend, and I had decided to bug bomb the house while we were gone. This would give the fog plenty of time to both work and to dissipate before we got back. I try to do this once every couple of years. I put the dogs' food and water bowls in the dishwasher so that they wouldn't get any bug fogger chemicals on them, started the dishwasher and the foggers, and then left for our vacation. When we got back, we unloaded our bags and our dogs, opened the doors to air the place out, tossed the fogger canisters, and went to the dishwasher to get the bowls so that we could feed and water our dogs. The food bowls were there, but not the ceramic water bowl. We had other water bowls, but that red one seemed to be the dog's favorite. I was confused and a little irritated with myself because I thought that I must have forgotten to put this bowl in the dishwasher, and I hoped that the dogs hadn't drank any water from it yet. The thing was, I had such a clear memory of putting it in the dishwasher. I went to the spot where the bowl is normally on the rug, and it wasn't there. I handed my wife the food bowls from the dishwasher and asked her if she had gotten the water bowl out already. She hadn't. She asked if I checked the cabinet. I hadn't, so I checked. In the cabinet was the collection of mixing bowls. There was a bowl that looked like it was the right size, but it was green inside and yellow on the outside. There was a small bowl that was red outside and yellow inside, but it was like the size of a soup bowl. This bowl was nowhere near the size of the bowl that we used for the water bowl. Our dogs were 60 to 100 pounds. The water bowl was a big bowl. I stepped back, left the cabinet doors open, and called my wife over and just pointed at the bowls. "Where's the water bowl?" she asked. "I can't find it. Do you remember what color it was?" I asked. She looked at me like I was an idiot and said, "Yeah, it's red and yellow." We turned the house upside down looking for that bowl. The set of bowls nest inside each other. Neither of us remembers the green and yellow bowl. But it's the same size as the red and yellow had been, so it could never have nested inside the red bowl or vice versa. Also, both of us are sure that we have never seen the small red and yellow soup bowl before. We pulled out the new green bowl and have used it ever since. The dogs didn't seem to mind the change. We both know that water bowl was red on the outside and yellow on the inside before we left. Now it's yellow on the outside and green on the inside. I know it's a small thing, but we are both absolutely certain it's not the same bowl, and it's not the right color. It really weirds us out still. And this all happened a few years ago. This morning, the 24th of December 2023, my son opened the last window on his Percy Pig chocolate advent calendar. He then asked me to pop the chocolates out of the calendar for him. I pressed the backing, causing the chocolate to protrude from the packaging so that he could remove it himself, which he likes to do. Being 4 years old, he failed to hold it properly and it fell down. I was sitting on a reclining chair at the time, and we watched the chocolate slide down my body and fall between my legs into the cushioned seat. I felt for it, but I couldn't find it, so I stood up to check. Nothing. We spent the next 15 minutes looking in and around the area for it and couldn't find it anywhere. I checked under the chair, inside all of the creases, nooks, and crannies, but still nothing. I sat back down and thought about where it could have gone. I then looked over at the now empty advent calendar and wondered if it could somehow be back in the slot. So I went over and picked it up and checked. Still nothing. I was about to put the empty box back down when I tilted it and heard something inside the box which was not there before. I opened the end of the box, tipped it, and out popped the missing chocolate. Stranger still is when I picked up the box to check, I tilted it towards me to look at the now empty window where the chocolate used to be, and there was nothing inside. It was silent. Both my son and I watched the chocolate slide away down my body and fall between my legs onto the cushion when he dropped it. I even asked him where it went, and he said that he watched it slide down onto the seat where I was sitting between my legs. I was holding the box up at the time in order to see where it went, and we both watched it slide down and disappear. The empty box was at least a foot away from the chocolates. There's absolutely no way that the two could have been in physical contact. Weirder still is that I tossed the box onto the other sofa in order to look, which is about 2 meters away. And when I threw it across, there was no sound from the box. It was silent and certainly empty. And then when I checked later, the chocolate was rattling around inside, which is impossible. Any thoughts? Going back a few years now, but my whole family remembers this vividly. I get home approximately 3 to 4 a.m. after having been out drinking all night, to find the front door locked and bolted from the inside, so my keys do not work. So I have to wake someone up to let me inside. Mom reluctantly and sleepily opens the door and asks me why I went back out again. Well, I hadn't. I had just gotten home. But she says that I came home about 2 hours prior, let myself in, and she spoke to me from across the room while she was watching TV. But I only said a couple of words and went upstairs to bed. My brother and dad both heard the conversation while they were upstairs and heard footsteps going up the stairs. So, naturally, my first reaction is to check upstairs, but there's no sign of anything. There were always spooky things going on in that home, so we just assumed that, quote-unquote, the ghost had a thing for me. Edit. I took the time to write about my other happenings in that same house to a comment here, so I might as well paste that here too for anyone else interested. My dad used to live in the house next door as a kid, and he had a Ouija board. They saw spirits quite regularly after this. Like, my nan saw some little girl crying in her bedroom once. I think my granddad saw a dead army vet walking through the house once and through a wall. I often wondered if my room became like the local ghost hangout spot or something, because I sometimes felt someone sit at the end of the bed but no one was there. My brother had friends stay in my room when I was out, and they said to him that they experienced weird stuff. Not sure what though, as we never found out the specifics. Had other little instances of different cats being scared and always looking up at the staircase frightened. Had things like Lego come randomly flying down that staircase when everyone, including the cats, were downstairs. I also had one night where I got into bed, and before falling asleep, it felt like someone laid on top of me, held the sides of the covers down, and rasped something that I can't quite recall now into my ear. That one does actually send shivers just remembering and writing it. But no full-on proper hauntings or anything that made us want to leave. We've lived there for 20 years before my parents downsized. I go past the house sometimes as my dentist is still there, and I wonder if the newer residents have experienced anything. But I'm not knocking and asking. Hell, they might recognize me as having let myself in at 2 a.m. with them too at some point. So, a couple years back, I got these cool, chunky platform shoes whilst on a holiday that had ankle straps. I loved these shoes, and wore them almost every day. One day I went to play a netball game like I do most weekends, and had to change out of these shoes into my gym kit, and leave them in the changing room as normal. I came back after the game and one of the shoes had their strap missing, like it was torn off. I was furious because, as I said, these were my favorite shoes, and it looked like someone had just ripped one up at the ankle strap. And I had bought them on a holiday in France, and I lived in England. The company didn't sell just one part of the shoe, nor did they ship overseas at the time. So it wasn't really something that could be easily fixed. So I put the shoe away. I wasn't able to find another identical pair that I liked, nor could I get them fixed without the strap to reattach. So, much to my disappointment, I just kinda left them alone. A few weeks after this had happened, I was looking for a different pair of shoes in my cupboard, and I picked up this pair to get them out of the way. Shockingly, they were looking good as new, with both ankle straps where they should be. I was naturally confused. I asked my parents if they knew anything about it, had replaced or fixed the shoe, but they knew nothing. I kind of let it slide and even convinced myself that maybe I had imagined the shoe breaking in the first place. Then, not long after that, I found the shoe strap in my gym bag, looking like it had been torn off of its shoe. I didn't have any other shoes like this that the strap I found could have come from, nor did any of my netball team, and it still baffles me to this day. This happened a few months back, but I'm new to Reddit, so I'm just now finding a place to post about it. It was really weird, and I still think about it sometimes. A few months ago, my boyfriend and I were coming home from a trip to visit family. We live in a small second-floor apartment that overlooks our parking lot. We were unpacking the car, bringing stuff upstairs little by little, and my family had sent us with a lot of food. So, one load we brought up all had to be unloaded into the fridge. As I was unloading the food, my boyfriend was standing at the counter and we were having a full conversation. I don't exactly remember what we were talking about, but it was something you wouldn't just walk away from. Anyways, he's standing there, and as I'm talking, I turn around to put something in the fridge, but when I looked back, he was gone. I was confused, because again, we were in the middle of a conversation, but I was like, is he hiding from me? Is he playing a joke? So I started laughing and looking for him around the apartment. After a few minutes, I was like, what the heck is going on? Because he was nowhere to be found. Sometimes he steps onto the patio to smoke, so I opened that door, and while he wasn't on our patio, I saw him downstairs unloading the car. I was really confused about how he got downstairs so fast, and why he left in the middle of our conversation. Well, he came back up a few minutes later, and had to knock because apparently the front door was locked, and he didn't have his keys. How did the front door get locked with him outside without keys, and me not knowing that somehow he left? The front door is in the kitchen that I was in. I would have heard the door open and close, but I heard and saw nothing if he left. I was also just literally putting something down in the fridge, so I had my back to him for like a split second. How could he possibly get to the door so fast? And yet I didn't see anything. None of it makes sense to me, and when I asked him about it, he had no idea what I was talking about, and no memory of our conversation while I was unloading food. It's so strange. My husband and I live in a pretty walkable small town and like to take walks in the evenings. We also will walk the town square for special events and festivals, and we always follow the same path, or close to the same. There is one section of the walk where there is a huge oak tree growing between the road and the sidewalk. The roots have torn up the sidewalk and made it super jagged. The first few times, I almost tripped walking on it. Now we always step off the sidewalk, go around the tree on the road, and get back on the sidewalk on the other side. We've done this walk a dozen times. We went on vacation and haven't taken our walks in about 2 to 3 weeks. Today, we started up again. We get to the big oak tree and I step into the road to go around. My husband asks what I'm doing. I remind him about the torn up sidewalk. He asks me what I'm talking about, so I step over to show him, but there is no sidewalk. The sidewalk ends neatly before the tree and doesn't resume until about 500 feet up on the other side of the intersection. There's mature grass, snow, and leaves, but no sign of a sidewalk or a sidewalk that has been recently removed. I say that I remember there being a torn up section of sidewalk in this spot, and that it continued all the way to the street. My husband swears there never has been. He swears that it always just ends there. I feel insane. We've walked that path hundreds of times over the past few years. It's one of the largest trees in town, so there's no mistaking it for a different street. And it's also right by our house. I've never experienced a glitch in the Matrix before, but I don't know what else to call this strange thing that happened. So, I have a digital clock in my bathroom, and it's right next to the mirror. Oftentimes, I look at the clock in the mirror instead of the real clock to see the time, because it's easier when I'm standing in front of the mirror. I was standing at the mirror and looking at the clock, in the mirror, which said 3:07. I quickly glanced at the real clock that was next to me and it read 3:08. I had a split-second thought about how weird it was that the clock changed so quickly that it already read 3:08 before I even finished moving my eyes. Because of this thought, I quickly looked back in the mirror, and this is where things got weird. The clock in the mirror still said 3:07, and as soon as I looked at it, it changed to 3:08. I stared in disbelief as I frantically looked back and forth between the mirror and its reflection, now both reading 3:08, trying to figure out how the real clock said 3:08 when its reflection was still reading 3:07. I was desperately trying to make sense of what happened, but really I couldn't. I genuinely have no way to explain this. As I thought about it further, I feel as though the time was 3:08 the entire time and the mirror was somehow off. I think that's why it read 3:08 the moment I looked at the real clock, and I think that's why the clock in the mirror immediately changed from 3:07 to 3:08 as soon as I looked at it. I wonder if my thoughts and expectations somehow influenced the mirror's image. I'm not sure, but my husband told me to post here, so thanks for reading. This happened in 2011 or 2012, and I can't talk about it without tearing up because I just don't know. I was in high school, in sociology class. I sat next to my friend Jane, who was notorious for having a crap ton of snacks every day. Small girl, fast metabolism probably. One of her go-tos were clementines, usually bringing one each day wrapped in a paper towel and keeping it in her bag, which was like a messenger/tote style bag. It stood up on its own and everything. I don't know if that's even relevant. So class is starting and she ate her clementine. I'm annoyed, so I ask for a slice and we split the clementine. She walked the peel and paper towel to the trash can by our teacher's desk and threw it away. This is all normal, and then she gets back to her desk and reaches down to get her stuff for the class, and suddenly sits straight up. I'm not sure how to describe her face, except for that she really looked like she saw a ghost. She asked me if she had just eaten her clementine, and I'm like, yeah. And I look over, and there's clearly a clementine wrapped in a paper towel in her bag where it's usually kept. I immediately was like, oh, you obviously mistakenly packed two. Or you didn't eat the one you packed yesterday, etc. She was adamant that that wasn't the case, and went to the trash can. And then she starts reaching in the trash can and sorting through the trash. I'm like, Jane, what are you doing? So I go over and look, and sure enough, there is no clementine peel in there. It's just not there. It has been less than a minute since I watched her throw it in this exact trash can. It was one of those little trash cans, and we emptied it out. By this point, we're both losing our crap, sitting on the ground, stammering, trying to blame each other for whatever the hell was happening. Our teacher noticed and let us sit out the rest of the class because we were so distraught. The peel just completely disappeared. I don't know if it's possible that she had a second clementine in her bag all along, but I 100% know that clementine 1 was eaten, and the peel was thrown away. I know that it's a small thing, but there really is no explanation. It truly changed my perspective about reality. This is a quick story from back in high school. Around 7 or 8 p.m., my friend and I were walking through an outlet mall for fun. There wasn't much for me to do in my hometown. Everything was closed, so we didn't pass pretty much anyone, besides this guy in a gray hoodie and some sweatpants, which neither of us thought was weird. I mean, if we were walking around the mall at night, why couldn't he? The part that was weird was when a few minutes went by and we passed the same guy again. We both looked at each other like, what the hell? And confirmed what had just happened and that it didn't make any sense to us. We didn't pass him again, and we didn't see him behind us either. We thought maybe it was twins playing a prank on us, but why would they do that in an outlet mall at that hour? I wish we had stopped him to see what had just happened, but it'll always be a mystery. In June of 2018, my daughter and I walked up the road a quarter of a mile to the local Waffle House for breakfast. Since we were walking, I only took a house key and my debit card and placed them in my jeans pocket. After breakfast, we walked up to the cashier with the ticket. I paid for the meal, and then we left and proceeded to walk back home. When we were almost home, I reached in my pants pocket to grab my key to unlock the door, and noticed that my debit card was not with the key. I panicked, so we turned around before unlocking the door and went back to the Waffle House, to see if I left the card with the cashier. We walked quickly back, also looking on the side of the road in case I dropped it. Once we got back to the Waffle House, the cashier said that she gave my card back to me, and no one had turned in a card possibly found on the floor. I felt sick, and all I could think of was hurrying back home and calling the credit card company to cancel my card. We proceeded back towards home again, and finally made it home. I unlocked the door and walked past the kitchen, and I noticed from the corner of my eye a piece of paper folded on the countertop. After opening the paper, I was shocked to discover that it was my receipt from the Waffle House, wrapped around my debit card. The card and the receipt were back at home before I made it home. Just so you know, my daughter was walking behind me and I unlocked the door and entered the house. So, she didn't have time to place my card and receipt in the kitchen. So that, my friends, was this week's glitch in the Matrix collection. A collection of the strange oddities that happen within our existence, our reality, if you will. Stories that are just downright odd, right? Stories that are strange, weird, odd is the word I just used, but let's use it a second time because my brain's not a thesaurus today. Strange, odd, weird, crazy, possibly. Awkward, that's me. Anyways, good stories, scary stories to some extent. Not always scary, though. Scary is the wrong word. Intriguing stories is the word I usually like to use for these. Because they intrigue me. They interest me. Don't typically scare me, but they interest me. They intrigue me. So, hopefully, they intrigue you as well. And if they did, would you please consider hitting that thumbs up button on the video if you haven't yet? That means you like the video, and thus YouTube will take that and say, hey, person you likes this video, let's show them more by this person, or let them know whenever this person posts more videos. Which I do at a consistent frequency for the most part. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays. Why am I still talking about that? I don't know. Like the video if you liked it. If you're new to the channel and liked what you heard, consider subscribing by hitting the subscribe button. That will also let you know whenever I post new videos and helps my numbers look a little better. Tells the system people like my stuff, so forth and so on. You get the point. Alternatively, you can do things like joining my Patreon or memberships to get early access to content like this, and other things depending on what you sign up for, mostly over on Patreon. I try to add value to my memberships. I do my best. Hopefully, my members believe they get good value out of what they pay. It's supporting the channel mostly, but I try to give back where I can as well, so. Super thanks. Those are tips to the channel. Never expected, always appreciated. I need to make a list of things I need to cover, but then I feel like it would end up sounding too much like a script. I don't like to script these. I just start talking. And then half the time I forget half the things I'm supposed to say, because that's just me. Anyways, all those things are always appreciated, but never ever expected. So thank you if you've done any of them. Now, the other thing you can do whenever it comes to glitch of the week, glitch in the Matrix stories, oh god, is submit a comment with the word of the week. On the screen now and several moments prior to now is a collection is a collection apparently. Jeez, what's wrong with me? Of all the comments on last week's video for the word of the week. Last week the word of the week was office. Not an easy one to do, but these lovely people did leave a comment with it, and as such they are featured here at the end of this week's video. Thank you to each and every single one of them. I appreciate it. I hope they're having a lovely day. Of course, I hope you're having a lovely day too, but, you know, they get a little extra because they went above and beyond. Yeah. This week, the word of the week is verdant. It means green in tint or color / green with growing plants, such as verdant fields, or unripe in experience or judgment. So if you're inexperienced, you could be considered verdant in a subject. It's also to be green in a subject. I believe that's a commonly used metaphorical phrase. Most people don't say verdant, they say green. So, yeah. All that said, friends... Oh, no, sorry. Leave me a comment with that. You get featured in next week's video. I meant to say that. Just forgot. Anyways, all that said, friends, I hope you're having a beautiful day and a beautiful week so far, even though it's just Monday or Tuesday if you're on the other side of the world. But I hope you're having a great day. Hope I do see you again here very soon. Please remember you are loved, you are valid, you are important, you are the best you that you can be. Do not forget it. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. And until next time, my friends, much love and sleep well.